I've always appreciated the pine tree. They symbolize temperate forests all over the world. Although vastly exploited for lumber, pine trees provide another resource few take advantage of, and that's the pine cone. Well, I'm sure some of you might have seen my videos on the cabinet modifications I did in my trailer. I added a fridge and got rid of the sink, and a few people complimented on my hardware, which is these natural wood handles. Well, there's other things I did as well, like put in a little stopper so that the door won't open up when you're traveling. But the coolest thing I did was make the knobs out of pine cones. So let me show you how I did that. Although many species of pine trees are suitable, there's an abundance of lodgepole pines where I live. And in late summer and early fall, the cones are mature and hanging on the trees. This is the time to harvest. To remove, you simply grab the cone and twist it until it comes off the branch. So here's a few pine cones I've gathered up from the forest, but there's a catch to using them because these are still green. They have moisture in them, so you can't use them as knobs yet. However, for me, I just simply get them in the fall and use them in the spring. For a pair of cabinet knobs, try to find two that are identical in size and form. The first step is to coat them with 5-minute epoxy. The purpose of this is simply to seal the cone and prevent it from opening up during the forming process. This can be a little messy, so use disposable gloves and wax paper on a counter. After they've been given a day to dry, it's time to get out that sander. My own choice is a belt sander to make the flat on the fat end of the cone, but you could also use a saw or any type of sander for this. You also need a little bit of a flat on the pointed end. This is for the nut that will anchor the pine cone to the cabinet. As for the type of nut, I use a T-nut, size 1032. But first you need to remove the little tabs that stick out with a pair of pliers. Next step, get out the drill and drill a hole in the smaller end using a 1/4-inch bit. You only have to drill deep enough to insert the T-nut. Then the T-nut is glued into the hole using epoxy. Once dried, the edges of the T-nut are ground down with a grinder. A Dremel or a hand file could also be used, but just make sure you don't get the nut too hot or the epoxy will soften. With the 1032 machine screw attached, it's time to form the knob using a sander. Very slowly you start sanding down the spikes of the cone by turning it as you sand. How far you go is a personal preference. I like to leave some of the bumps in place just to give it that natural look. A little hand sanding can smooth out those valleys, and once you're happy with the shape, it's time for the best part, coating the knob with epoxy. If it's available, there are commercial grade epoxies that last long and never yellow. However, I'm just using regular hardware store 5-minute epoxy for this. Make sure you mix enough before quickly coating the cone with a popsicle stick. Once completely coated, keep turning the cone to get an even coat and prevent sagging of the epoxy. To prevent bubbles in the finish, you can spray acetone onto the flowing epoxy to prevent this. It's now you really see the patterns come to life, but it'll be 24 hours until the knob is completely hardened. Using a crystal clear varathane with a UV inhibitor may be a way of reducing the yellowing of the epoxy. I just dip the cones into the can, turn the knobs to evenly coat, and then wipe off any excess at the base with my finger. Once completely dry, you're ready to install in your cabinet. The length of the machine screw is the door thickness plus 1/4 inch. Insert the screw, attach the knob, and screw it in place. Well, that's it for the pine knobs, but I might as well show you how I made the other hardware. The handles were either made of a hawthorn or elm branch, dried for a year, and cut into quarters. I gouged out the inside with an angle grinder or table saw. Once formed, you can smooth the groove with a sander. I coat the whole handle with epoxy, similar to how I did the knobs, but it doesn't have to be that thick, only enough to keep the bark from peeling off. Once dry, you can attach the handles to the drawer. I drilled 2 pilot holes through the drawer first, holding the handle in place. That way the holes match perfectly. Insert the machine screws and then tighten. The groove under the handle makes it easy to open and close. The last item is the stopper, made out of the same wood but with a flat base. To prevent scratching the cabinet doors, I added a couple of self-adhesive felt pads. I used a 2.5 inch long machine screw, a compression spring, and 2 washers to hold it all in place. After drilling a hole through the support between the doors, I inserted the machine screw from behind. A hole in the middle of the stop lines up with the machine screw, and I just twist it into place. To use, I just pull out the stop, twist it 90 degrees, and your cabinet's secured. Did I mention that pine cones also make really cool wine stoppers? But that's enough building for today. But I think I have enough time to tell a little story that's kinda related. On my way to Mount Palomar yesterday to see the observatory, I took this long winding road that goes up the mountain. And as I went around one corner, there was this massive object right in the middle of the lane. And so I had to swerve around it because I didn't want roadkill guts all over my tires and all that stuff. But on the way back, it was still there. And you'll never guess what it really was. This. An absolutely massive pine cone. And not only that, it's heavy and it's spiked. It's kind of hard to even hold on to. But the lesson is, if you're up there with a convertible, it's probably a good thing to leave your top up, because one of these popping down on your head would not be a good thing. Ping! Ouch. So there you go, folks. There's my video on the pine knobs and the wood hardware. But guess what? Dry dock is officially over, so it's time for me to get out the trailer and start traveling again. So today is load up day. I hope you enjoyed this video, and check out my other ones. expect a few travel videos in the next little while. Also, I've got some stuff that I never released before, so always check back. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Please give me a thumbs up if you liked it, and I always appreciate the comments. And always go where the road takes you. And don't forget to subscribe.